Hi everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to paint this ogre. So I started off and I base coated the whole thing in a dark brown. Now you'll actually see later on I did a different ogre in a dark green, so you can actually see the difference between the two kind of undertones. So first off, I'm starting off by doing a dry brush of the Nurgling Green, and this, I'm not sure if you'd really call this a dry brush, it was just kind of a layering with a really fluffy brush, and that gets this really good coverage, and by using a really dark color as your base, it really brings out those shadows and stuff like that. So I did a really good coating of this Nurgling Green, as you can see here, and you can still see like the brown accentuates the shadows. Alright, now I'm going back over in this lighter green, and this is definitely a dry brush technique, and I'm really just hitting kind of all of the spots where the light would be hitting the skin the most. So like the top of the head, the shoulders, tops of the arms. I did do like on the kneecaps and the feet, just to help bring out some of those high points even more. And you can see that really does help it pop a little bit more. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add another dry brush in a little bit more of a flesh tone with this Eldar Flesh. And what that does is it doesn't take away all of the green, but it does bring in a little bit more fleshy colored. So depending on what kind of creature you're painting, for a goblin you'd probably want to leave it a little bit more on the green side. I figured for the ogre, having a little bit closer to that flesh tone worked out pretty well. Alright, so now I went back through and I reapplied a base coat of the dark brown, and then I also did this lighter brown and a gray for the band around his neck. And now I've just been going through and doing a dry brush of the fur. And a lot of this stuff I'm kind of jumping through. Oh, this is the point where I started painting what I thought was a rope, but after painting it yellow, I realized it was the fur tucked over the top of the belt. That's one of the great things about miniatures is if you paint something wrong, you can just add another layer of paint over it, or, if it is a really big mix-up mistake, you can just go and use some paint thinner to remove it and start all over again. And that's what you can see I've done here. I've gone back and I painted the dark brown back over it, and while I was waiting for that to dry, I went and did a couple of other things. I hit the fur with another dry brushing. I went through and then added that dry brush to that fur part that I initially missed. So one of the things that I really like doing with a lot of flesh tones is adding a color underneath it, whether it's a person, a person usually have reds and browns, but also I've done a couple of like reptile things where I've had a blue or a red as the undertone. So here I'm just going through and painting the skulls, but doing that red or that blue undertone on a reptile, and then even if you do that green, it adds a depth to it. And something I noticed watching through Planet Earth, reptiles have a lot of color to them that we miss, and I think that's something true of kind of a lot of creatures. There's a lot of colors and tones. So now I'm going through and I'm going to take this flesh tone and do the strings and things kind of holding things together. So flesh tone can be used for other things. I like using it because it kind of to me has a tone of like rawhide or something like that. So I'm just kind of doing a lot of the finishing touches here, going through and getting the metallic bits highlighted and doing all of those small little detail stuff. And I did go through and I did silver for like the chainmail and around the band around his neck, which you can see a little bit here. And then I actually decided I wanted to go back through and add a little bit of like a rusty color to it. So you can see that here. So that kind of gives it a little bit more of a worn look. It's not fresh, shiny chainmail that's been taken care of. It's rusted in spots. Just going through and painting the rope around the barrel. One of the great things about having, like, using a cork or putting the mini on something is that I can hold that and turn that all around. And there you go. That is pretty much the finished miniature. So yeah, I was really happy with how it turned out. This very greenish flesh tone with this undershade of the dark brown that really, especially on the back, you can see kind of all of the folds and the muscles and between the fat and all of that stuff. And so the one on the right is the one that I did the base coat in a dark green. And you can see the difference between the two. The one with the dark green, I think it would be a really great for doing like a goblin. But I actually think I prefer the darker brown for an ogre. It has a little bit more of a human person look to it, but it's completely up to you. Let me know if you have a preference over doing the more greener ogre or the darker brown. I want to give a special thanks to all of our patrons, especially Arby, Elaney, Sean, and William. If you want to become a patron and check out some cool perks, possibly get a mini from Ryan or I, you can go check out patreon.com/rollforinitiative. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye!